One two one two. What's going on, guys? BWise guy here, coming at you with a MVC ASP NET C# tutorial. This one's number 2 in the series. If you haven't watched the first one on MVC itself and why you would use MVC and when you shouldn't use MVC, go back and watch that one. Otherwise, this one won't make so much sense to you. But yeah, let's get started. So, my build and dev environment is Visual Studio 2012, and I'm using ASP.NET 4. Sorry. MVC.NET 4 for Microsoft MVC. I won't show you how to set up your project because you guys can just click through that. I'm using an intranet application. It doesn't really make that much of a difference to the overall usage of MVC or whatever. The only difference is that one uses IIS pass-through security with Azure or Windows authentication, and the other one uses an external login. And we can get into that in some more advanced tutorials, but it's basically just the way that the controllers handle the authentication requests and page requests and stuff, which is a much more advanced MVC topic. Alright, so to get started, you should basically have a working MVC website by now if you created it with the scaffold. This thing scaffolds you, and it gives you a website that uses Bootstrap. I'm incredibly sorry that Microsoft decided to use Bootstrap. You don't have to use Bootstrap at all. You can in fact remove Bootstrap, but I'll be keeping Bootstrap just for the purposes of this tutorial because I don't have time to remove them. However, if you would like to remove the Bootstrap CSS framework, which I would highly recommend you do, unless it's specifically for your purpose, then yeah, go for it. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to head over to our Solution Explorer, and we're going to actually just explore a few things here in the MVC land. So first thing I should point out is the most obvious, and that's this. Your views are like your static HTML pages. So the view language in C# is called Razor. Previously, it was ASP Web Forms. I don't recommend ever touching ASP Web Forms unless you want to hate yourself for a long time. So go ahead and learn Razor. So we're going to be going through a lot of Razor stuff in these tutorials. And you can see that they are all prefixed with arrow.cshtml and so on, and viewstart.cshtml. The next thing we have is a scripts folder where you should put all your scripts. I like to follow the convention that the scaffolder creates, which is jQuery dot whatever I'm using dot whatever. You'll notice that the scaffolder generated us a very old version of jQuery. We won't be upgrading it for these tutorials. However, I recommend before you start writing any JavaScript in jQuery that you go ahead and upgrade your jQuery first if you're using MVC 4, because you don't want to be sitting on an old version that's potentially full of bugs, some of which I've come across personally. The next thing which we'll be focusing on intensely in these tutorials is the controllers. The controllers are, as I said, they're kind of like little go-between between the model and the view, and we'll get into more of that later. Content, you can basically, this is where your CSS lives. You can stick whatever you want in here. You can stick some images in here if you want. You're meant to use this folder for images, but the content folder is just basically for putting in whatever else you want in there. Often frameworks will store things in there if you use NuGet, so there's that. App Start is a much more advanced topic, but basically it contains all your bundles. So MVC C# bundles all your things and minifies them and whatever else for you. And it does that via script bundling and style bundling. We also have the router, which you can configure in here, which you can set the default controller and the default action. And the ID of that default controller and default action. You can see that the URL routing pattern is also there, and we'll go into that a little bit more afterwards in maybe another tutorial. And finally, MVC natively supports an API controller, so if you were planning on ever creating an API for your website, if it's a very data-driven kind of website that third parties might want to connect to, or you might want to proxy off some of your calls to an API, then you obviously have that option as well with MVC .NET. So let's get started. So let's go through some things really quickly. The first thing I really want to take you guys through is the views. So The reason I'm going to take you through the views is because the views are really easy to demonstrate. So you guys are very used to you guys are very used to static HTML. If you're not used to static HTML, these tutorials definitely are not for you. They're much too advanced. So go and look up some static HTML and go learn some HTML and CSS, and then come back to these tutorials. But essentially, in ASP.NET MVC, we use something called the Razor View engine, right? Now, the way that this works is, let's just have a look here quickly, and let's just do this by demonstration since I've got this all open. So, what we're looking at here is we're looking at the index page for our website. Now, as you can see, the index page has all this content in it, and we have some lists and whatever else, and you can see there. So what I'll do is I'll stop this project from running, and I'll remove some stuff, and I'll just show you that it's no different to normal HTML. So I'll hit run again, and it'll bring up my browser, and as you can see, we've removed the content under we suggest the following, and I can do that as much as I want. Okay, so now let's just say, for example, right, that we wanted to do some more advanced things. So we don't just want a static HTML website. So what would we do? Well, in Model View Controller Framework, we would create a model. So let's just say, for example, we want to display a product. All right, because I like the product example. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new model. So we'll go to Add, and we'll go to you have to stop your class. Sorry, you have to stop your project from running. I make that mistake pretty much throughout my entire day. I don't know why. So you want to go to Add, and then you want to go to New Class, and we're going to call this one Product Model.cs, and we're going to add this one. Cool. Okay, so now we have a new class called Product Model. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to create some properties for our product model. And you guys have to excuse me, my throat's a bit dry at the moment, so if I'm having a bit of trouble explaining things, that's just why. Alright, so let's just think about this for a second. What does a product specifically have? Well, a product has a few things. Let's just do this. So we'll say public decimal RRP underscore price. Whoops. Get set public string product name get set. What else does a product have that's pretty generic to a product? I think that's enough just for this tutorial. It demonstrates the idea. Alright, so I'm going to leave this for now, and then we're going to abstract a lot of this away, but I'm just going to show you. So head over to your, once you've created your model, head over to your controllers folder and head over to the home controller so we can explain this. Alright, so in short, the way that this works is you have action results, action result and action result, right? Now, these are essentially public methods that have a return type of the class action result, and the router looks for these action results and maps them to a view, right? So in this case, the view is index or about or contact. And then what we do is we actually return the data to the view. So we say return view, and this is a function built into this base class controller here. Now, we have the option to do a lot of modification on the base controller, which you will do in larger apps. Often you'll need some fine-grained control over all of your controllers, and you don't want to have to go through them all. But we will get into that in yet another tutorial, probably 5 or 6 tutorials down the track. But just for now, let's just do something that we kind of want to know about now. So, you might be thinking to yourself, well, we've created a model, and we've got our controller. How do we get the data onto the view, onto the web page, so that we can see what's going on, right? And it's as easy as this. So first thing we've got to do is we've got to add our using statements in, because otherwise it won't know. So the namespace is hello MVC. By the way, these tutorials assume you have a knowledge of C#. If you don't, go watch Jamie King's videos on C#. And then come back to these tutorials. Otherwise, you're going to really struggle with the following videos. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an instance of product models in our controller. Now, if you remember in the previous video, I said controllers do things, right? views display things, controllers do things, and models are things. So remember that when you're using your MVC and you're thinking about your separation of concerns. So we're going to say product model, my product is equal to new product model. Okay, so we've got a new product model. Now we'll say my product dot RRP price is equal to 21.50. And we'll say my product dot product name is equal to fun product. And what is it complaining about? Okay. Yeah, that's just a conversion issue with my setup here. Alright, so essentially what we've got here is we've got a product, right? Now, the thing about MVC and ASP.NET is it uses something called strongly typed views. You might be thinking to yourself, what is a strongly typed view? It means that there is a direct association between the model and the view. The view and the view engine Razor know and understand each other, and they understand that the object itself has a certain number of properties and what those properties are. So we need to associate, which we'll do in a second, we need to associate the view with a model, and the controller will be the transport, will be the truck, and it will be the arteries of our project here. So finally, all we need to do in this controller is we just need to return the object. So in this case, we're not returning anything as JSON or whatever else, we're just returning the model itself. So we say return my product. Cool. Now we'll run this project and you'll notice that nothing happens. Nothing on our page happens, whatever else. You can't see anything different. There's no prices on here. That's strange. But didn't we return the view? Yeah, we did. But we didn't actually tell the view exactly how it should work. So what we need to do is we need to find the associated view for this index, right? So for this controller, we need to find the associated view, right? Which will in this case be index.cshtml. And we go over here and we need to create an association between the model and the view. So what we'll do is the way we create associations in Razor is like this. We say at model, and then we say we use our namespace. So we can say we can either do product model, or we can say hello MVC, depending on how your namespace is set up, hello MVC dot models. Now there is an association between dot models dot product model. So now there is an association between what is it complaining about? Whoops. There is a direct association between yes, I want to start debugging. There is a direct association between our view and our model, right? So now our view understands how to interpret the following code which you're going to give it. Without this bit of code at the top, our view has no idea how to understand the models in which we're giving it. We'll get into later tutorials about dynamic model bindings and all sorts of weird stuff, but just for now, we're going to be dealing with this. So all we need to do now is we need to use the Razor engine, and we're going to say at model dot product name. And what we'll do is we'll say h1 product name, and that's cool. So what we'll do is we'll run this, and as you can see, we've got here fun product. And if you remember, we set that in our controller. And just to prove this to you one more time, we'll do h1 product price at model dot RRP price, and we will build and run this again. And as you can see, we've got product name and product price 21.50. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. In the next video, we'll be covering some more of the controllers, and we'll also be going into the abstraction of models in an MVC framework and in the .NET MVC framework. Questions, comments, and concerns, likes, dislikes, leave them in the comment section below. You can find these tutorials now posted up on root0.me, and you can find me on Freenode IRC under #web. Alright, cheers, guys.